They say talk is cheap, so let's add some value to your voice. It's Targeted Impressions with Scott Cody. Yeah, for the first time ever, you're getting to see this face made for podcasting as Targeted Impressions goes video, but it's a special edition of Targeted Impressions. The first time we've been on video, the first time we're going to have two guests. I welcome in Jared Freeman, Rhonda Hotard, and we're talking credit union mergers. You guys in the credit union space have kind of been the talk for the last 6 months or so, and we really wanted to go behind the scenes and find out how this merger between Louisiana Federal Credit Union and OnPath Federal Credit Union came together. But we're going to throw the talking points out the windows, guys. We got mimosas. We're going to open it up a little bit, get a little unbuttoned. So first off, thanks for coming on. I think we're going to have a pretty good time today. Everybody doing all right this morning?
Yeah, doing good.
Absolutely.
Perfect,
Yes.
perfect.
We learned a long time ago, Scott, Ron and I don't need talking points.
No.
For better or worse, we feed off each other, which is sort of been the story of this merger, actually.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about, I love origin stories. Kind of when we're sitting at a bar or something, I always like to find out how a couple met. So let's talk about the origin story of Louisiana Federal Credit Union merging with OnPath.
Well, you mentioned origin story. I want to go to the backstory a little bit, which was 10 years ago when OnPath was still ASI. We were having conversations with them at that time about merging. And interestingly enough, we got, I would say, pretty far along in that process. There are 5 major things that you need to decide early on in a merger. And I'm sure we'll get into that later on about what a wonderful job Jared and I did in trying to get those decisions made early on. But, those things are who's the CEO, what's the name going to be, what's going to be the surviving charter, what core operating system are you going to stay on, and then obviously who will be on the board of directors. And so when we were talking to ASI 10 years ago, we'd gotten through all that. We'd actually gotten a memorandum of understanding signed between the boards and had a lot of that ironed out. And it ended up falling apart really basically over the name. And so we may talk about that a little bit later, about how we ended up with the name OnPath. But that was really it. And so we parted as friends and just decided that we would continue to go our own path at that time.
So just some backstory for not everyone that's watching probably understands. OnPath up until 2019 was called ASI Federal Credit Union. So this was the same two entities essentially coming together. Couldn't agree on the name, which destroyed it.
Yes.
What? No one would give way on that.
No. At that time, they felt really strongly that they wanted to retain, fundamentally their identity as ASI Federal Credit Union. We wanted to remain Louisiana. We felt that Louisiana was more marketable at that time. And so when a lot of credit unions, I think, get hung up on that because the name is so important to them, to the board, to the employees, and it's not really important to your members.
I find that so common to be true, that we think our members care about all these things. At the end of the day, they really just want great service, friendly faces, the same people answering the phone. And so it's funny that the name is probably, I would guess, one of the things that kills credit union mergers more often than not. It's just kind of one of those emotional legacy things that I think people get hung up on. What I find so funny about that backstory is that 5 years later, ASI changed their name.
Exactly. That's Yeah.
Yes.
But so someone had told me earlier, though, I think, and this kind of goes to that. So we talk about it not happening back then, but it happens now. There's probably maybe a deeper reason behind that.
Yes.
I mean, and so kind of go with me now, fast forward now, how this conversation starts between you two.
Divine intervention.
There you go.
Yeah.
We've said that so many times. It was divine intervention.
It really was the perfect storm of circumstances, timing, economics, finance, everything. I mean, had it happened a year before, I just don't think we'd be sitting here today. And so it really was from the beginning. I often told Rhonda, I said, I keep waiting for the shoe to drop. Like something bad is going to happen that blows this deal up. And it just never did. I mean, it really felt, dare I say, blessed at every phase.
So no hiccups, or if there was, what was the maybe a stumbling block. There had to be something along the way that had caused a small pivot.
I want to go back to the origin story just for a moment and talk about how it came about. Jared was the one that made the first move.
Okay. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Through a third party consultant, and obviously, I know we'll get into this hopefully in a lot more detail and depth, but you really have to have an open mindset strategically. I think both organizations have to be open to alternatives and strategic growth. And Louisiana Federal has always had mergers on the strategic plan, although it was buried down there a bit, because we've done 4, and most of those were, they weren't of this size at all. And so you have to just have an open mindset. You have to come to the table with no egos. And so when that third-party consultant reached out to me and said, hey, would you be interested in having a conversation? I said, absolutely. That was my immediate response, was absolutely, because I knew that our board would be open to considering having that conversation. And so we got through that. He didn't tell me who it was with. And so you have to have that open-minded thought process that at that point, are you going to consider a merger or not? Doesn't matter who it's with. Is this part of your strategic plan? And so my answer was yes. And then I went to the board and I said, hey, they've reached out and want to know if we want to have a conversation. The board said, sure, have the conversation.
They know it was OnPath at this point?
No, not at that time.
Just merger talks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just merger talks.
So Jared, what was the reason you went through this third party for Louisiana in particular?
So several years ago, after I got to OnPath, we identified that for better or for worse, like it or not, our industry is consolidating. And that's due to a myriad of things: regulatory burden, just the economies of scale, the cost of doing business in general. Back in the day, the glory days, if you will, all credit unions were solely tied to their original SEG, Select Employee Group. And for us, Avondale Shipyard, it was a wonderful SEG, but it died 10 years ago. It went away, no longer exists. And so, ASI at the time, now OnPath, was kind of forced into having to redefine how we were going to survive long term and add value to our members and serve our community. And so I wanted to be intentional with the board, because there's always that fear that a board's going to hold on to legacy thoughts, legacy things, sacred cows, right? The name, the charter, this or that. And sometimes it doesn't make any sense and you don't even know what it's going to be until you propose something and there's a strong reaction to whatever it is you propose. And so I brought in this third party to really educate the board on what their fiduciary responsibility is. They really serve the members in the best interests of the members, and that can mean anything. That can mean merging with Louisiana Federal Credit Union, or merging with somebody else, or changing the charter, or adding branches, or whatever the case may be. And so we did a lot of education. And the consultant really challenged the board to open their minds and remind them that their responsibility was to always put the good of the collective group of members ahead of any personal interest or feelings about this or that. And so we sort of went down that path a couple years ago and identified some attributes of what we thought a successful merger partner would look like. And just like Louisiana, OnPath, formerly ASI, had done countless mergers, but usually small. We would just take the credit union in. It would be maybe one branch and a handful of employees or so. And, we decided, hey, if we're going to do this work, because it's a lot of work, it's still a lot of work, it needs to be worth our while. It really needs to add value to our members. And so we identified, Louisiana as a strong, healthy partner that, hey, we don't know if it's going to work, but that's the kind of organization we want to merge with if we're going to do it, because it's just so much work. And we have to be able to stand in front of our members at the annual meeting and say, this better your life, your account here with OnPath. And so we started down that journey, and the consultant really educated us and held us accountable to those things. And here we are.
So the conversation starts. Now it's OnPath, and we get down the road of, and I keep thinking back to some of the stumbling blocks that you talked about before. So the new credit union now will be called OnPath Credit Union. Yes. Was there any pushback as to what the name would be at this point?
No. Oddly enough, when Jared and I sat down and had our very first meeting and we talked, one of the first things we talked about were those 5 things that can kill the deal.
Yeah.
And we both left our egos at the table. We both said, it doesn't matter. Name doesn't matter. Charter doesn't, none of that matters. I mean, obviously, again, with the timing, they were already looking at a new core, and they had gone out and started doing some research on that. And I believe it already made the decision that they wanted to move to the core that we currently have. So that decision was made.
Check that box, right?
That was made. I was retiring. I had an upcoming retirement plan. The board had known of that for the last, 2 or 3 years. And so Jared being the CEO that was a no-brainer. We immediately talked about the board seats, what we wanted to do with that, and we're able to resolve that. So the last couple of things really was charter and name. And so we basically left the charter decision up to the consultants to say, we have to do financially, you have to account for a merger a little different than you had to 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so you have to look at M&A accounting rules. And we basically said, whatever makes the most financial sense for the ongoing credit union is what we need to do. And so that's just the way it worked out.
It was such a relieving process, too, because you didn't have to worry about, is somebody going to get their feelings hurt over this decision? Because we're all here to do what's best for the membership. And so if the math works out this way or that way, then go with the math, because that's what's best for the members. And so took the pressure off, honestly. We didn't have to sit around and go, let's thumb wrestle for what the name is going to be or the charter is going to be in this case, because we let the merger accounting kind of do its thing. And so it did work out that the OnPath charter would be most advantageous from a merger accounting perspective. Even better, actually, than what we originally thought. Yeah. So, fair market valuations are a tricky thing, and we don't pretend to be merger accounting experts. We let them do that.
We just know accretion is a good thing.
Yeah,
accretion. Yeah, Google that. Yeah,
I'll have to Google that. Accretion's your friend.
Yeah.
So with these mergers, the Louisiana members had to vote for this, and these traditionally for the most part, go through, right? So 70% of these go through. But there was a small little campaign right during the vote where some signs were going up in the Laplace area and around, say no to the vote.
Yes.
Why, you think? And did that make you guys nervous at one point?
We were absolutely nervous initially because we thought, how big is this going to be? Because you never really know. And we had already done so much work and effort had been put into it so far just to get to the approval process, to start to get our staff to be comfortable with this. And so for something to happen in that phase would have been very detrimental, I think, to both organizations.
9-10 months of hard work would have been wasted.
Yeah.
And that would have been hard. Yeah, we were nervous. I think Rhonda and I never took it lightly, our members on both sides' response, which is why we hit the streets. Mm-hmm. I mean, branch visits, community events, speaking engagements. I think we really, to pat ourselves on the back, I think we really worked hard to do virtual town hall meetings and Q&As with the members, and we didn't shy away from their questions, and there were questions.
Yes, there were questions.
A lot of them were more tactical in nature. Is this person going to be here? Is this program that I've come to love and like, about the credit union going to be here? And we didn't shy away from those feedbacks. And so, the signs made us a little nervous, but I think, the blessing in all of that was it was still early enough for Rhonda really to kind of discover where that was coming from.
That was my next question was, I'm sure there were a bunch of text messages going back and forth that morning.
Yes.
And then you had to put on a detective hat. Kind of.
And we knew that there were some people that were uncomfortable with where this was going and what it meant to them, especially in the local community where our headquarters is. So I reached out and I met with some of those community individuals that I felt were having some concerns, and had meetings with them and just said, hey, tell me what your questions are. Tell me what your problems are. Tell me why you're hesitating, and let's talk through this. And so a lot of it was just unknown. Obviously people just don't like change. We love our credit union. We don't want anything different. There's a lot of feeling in local communities now with small community businesses leaving, larger financial institutions coming in, buying out local community banks and credit unions, things like that. So they just felt like they were going to lose something in the communities where we were. And so once we had those conversations, and I said, look, OnPath has the same core values, and they strongly believe in being a part of the communities in which they serve. And so that is going to continue. That's not going to stop. Obviously, a couple of them, we don't want you to leave. And I said, well, I'm leaving anyway. I'm leaving regardless.
You don't get that choice. I got to go be grandma.
Yeah, I got to go be grandma. And so it was that kind of thing. It was really more about change and the unknown, and really just wanting everything to stay status quo.
Isn't that life in general, though?
It is.
Fear of change is such a common thread amongst people. And, I would say even on the employee side, that's been... I wouldn't say it's been an impossible hurdle, but it's been, something that we've had to deal with, just getting people comfortable with, hey, change was already happening on both sides of the fence here. Now we're just together and stronger and bigger and better. And, but change is always going to happen. And just getting over that initial hump of, people just get freaked out and they have to process. And so, again, I just think to pat ourselves on the back, we just met all of that head on. We didn't really shy away from anyone's questions, or be it the community or members or the employees. We had a lot of employee meetings. I got really good at sitting at lunches and just listening to somebody borderline verbal, lash me a little bit and just take it and smile and say, I hear you. But hey, this is what it's going to be, and this is the benefit, and this is how it's going to go. And I would say, all that's turned out really well.
So let's go back to that. What was maybe one of the most unexpected questions or concerns or things that came up while you're having these town hall discussions, quote unquote?
I don't think anything unexpected. Again, most people just want to know that they're going to be okay, whether it be employees or members. The members want to know if they're going to still have the same staff when they walk in the branch that they've made relationships with over the years. They still want to know that their accounts are going to be okay, and their account number is not going to change, and do they have to order new checks? Those kinds of things. My
debit card's going to work.
Yeah.
And I think it's all... I wasn't unexpected. I really thought this would be the case, and it turned out to be so. It was real tactical. Are we still going to get this holiday off?
Right.
So more internal
we
stuff.
We have this perk on this side, and are we going to keep that perk? And there was a lot of that. Is my insurance going to change? And then from the members, it was, I really like the swap and drop program. Is that going to go away? And at the beginning, I'm like, I don't know what that is. So let me find out. But just really talking through that. So it really wasn't big stuff, if that makes sense.
Okay.
It was a lot of real small tactical stuff, which is important. Don't get me wrong. But that's probably what I expected, honestly.
Yeah. So as going through, you said a couple of small ones, mergers.
Yes.
You've been on mergers on the other side as well. Now this is kind of this. Now we become the second largest credit union in the state, right?
Well, now fourth.
Fourth. Okay.
One passed us in the middle of the merger.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. But still,
we'll catch up.
Moved up into the top 5. But what did you learn from this that is kind of the one thing you don't want to step in, or you would give someone advice that's going through this? What's the one thing you'd like to do different, or you would have avoided?
I've thought about that, because we actually had a postpartum merger meeting about a month ago. Just, what went well, what could we have done better? And I'm not going to say we're perfect, but I think we did the best we could. Obviously, there are always things you could do differently. But I can't really think of any major things. That if you can, the more information you can get out, that's probably the one big thing.
But you're limited at the start, right? When
you are.
You can say,
you have to be so careful and protect, again, the possibility of what's to come. You really, I learned a lot of patience throughout the process. I really wouldn't change anything, Scott. Holistically, all the work that was done had to get done, either before or after legal day one. It had to get done regardless. And so, could the timing be different on little different things, product alignment or this decision or that? Maybe. But it's hard to say really if that would have made a material difference in the overall success of getting to legal day one of the merger. And, for us, it all has to happen anyway, eventually. And so for me, I feel like now that we're past LD1, we have so much of a head start on all those tactical things that have to happen before we truly are on the same core. Because keep in mind, we're legally one entity today. But, because core systems are what they are, the behemoths that they are, takes a long time to pull all that together. And so we're still operating on two separate core systems today, but that will come in less than a year.
And that's the big message to get out there, right? So Louisiana Federal was a closed seg kind of environment at that point. Now it opens up with OnPath's charter, to your point earlier. So these people that maybe had a branch right next door to them that because they didn't work at a certain place can now go in and operate at this institution that's been around 90 years. That's a messaging point that the marketing staff's got to put out. But you talked about trust a little earlier. Did you guys learn maybe who you can and can't trust a little bit in this whole process?
Yes, but I think the most important aspect of trust is between the two CEOs. Because when you're negotiating this and you're going through this process, you have to be able to pick up the phone and have those difficult conversations, or say, "Hey, we gotta jump on this." And Jared and I, we were able to develop that trust early on, and I think that he I'm sure feels the same way. Like, there's nothing that I can't talk to him about, or if something's bothering me or something's bothering him. Like, we just have, and we haven't had to have those real difficult conversations, but you have to approach it from the standpoint that I'm not going to be protective of my people. It's our people. We have to share in this. It's like when you get married and the two people come together and you have the conversations and you can't pick sides. You just really can't pick
United
sides.
front.
I think our mindsets probably much earlier on than the rest of our team shifted to the new organization. And that was sort of an interesting thing because early on, we saw the momentum, we saw the positives, we were pushing, our team wasn't there yet. And so we were already thinking through the lens of the new organization. And then I would have to sort of compartmentalize my brain of, okay, now I have to go back to be just OnPath CEO. But then tomorrow I need to go be the new credit union CEO and think through those things. And there was a little jockeying going on there to think through okay, I do want to make sure that operations are good today, that members are being taken care of, that we're fulfilling our fiduciary responsibilities today, but laying the foundation for what will be the new organization and doing the right things there. And so that really helped. I mean, I have to give kudos to Rhonda. I think I've thought about this a bunch. I have a few years left of working. And so I've thought about often, would I have the courage to do what Rhonda did at the end of my career? And I hope I will. And I think often that in 25 years or whenever that is, it sounds terrible to say out loud, by the way. I want to make sure, and I'm sure I will look back at Rhonda as an example, that I'm always putting the good of the organization ahead of my own personal needs. And what a legacy for her. I asked her the other day what size the credit union was when she started. I think you said 40, 60 million, somewhere around
50.
So in her career, just at Louisiana Federal, she's been able to take the organization from 50 million to $1 billion in assets. That's half of 1% of CEOs can say that.
Yeah.
So what an incredible legacy for her. And I just hope that, if the opportunity presents itself at the end of my career, especially, that I will follow suit.
So we were fortunate to get to teach a marketing class at the Southeast Region Credit Union School in Athens. And it's a 3-year program. The debate every year that they have is over a topic. And the topic this year was, are mergers killing the credit union environment? So the stat...
My favorite discussion.
Yeah, so the stats out there, 10, 15 years ago, there were 10,000 credit unions. Now there's a little under 5, but there's more credit union members. So mergers are happening while credit union membership is going up. Why is merger a bad word among some groups in the credit union space?
I think people are afraid of it. It's got to boil down to fear, in my opinion. I mean, it could be something different, but I think that as long as boards are stuck in their feelings and not facts,
Yeah.
and stuck in that place where they say,
Let me stop you right. So go expound on that. Feelings and not facts. What does that mean?
that means that you are stuck with, our credit union has to remain, our credit union, we have to have this name, all of those things that you,
Sacred cows.
the sacred cows and the things that you feel so strongly about. And I've heard board chairs say, as long as I'm on the board, we'll never consider, as long as I'm alive, we're never going to consider this. And staff too, people are fearful. They're fearful of what that would mean to them if they were able to successfully negotiate a merger. And unfortunately, I think credit unions that are not considering it, it's harmful to them to not be strategically open-minded about possibilities for growth for their credit union. And merger's not the only way, but I feel, not facts, but I feel that people that have that mindset, if you look at their credit union financials, you see that they've been stagnant in growth. They're struggling to make loans. They're struggling to make income because they feel like if they keep doing what they've always done, they're going to be successful. And that is simply not true.
It's really sad, Scott. I started about 20 years ago in this industry at a pretty small credit union. We had 3 branches, 20 employees, about $60 million in assets, and just a couple thousand members. And I loved it. It was wonderful. I was too young and dumb to know all of the challenges of our industry at that time, but the credit union I worked at did merge in 2010 with a large organization, and I ended up working there for 10 years. And I now know that, if that credit union was still alive today as it was then, it would be suffering. The members definitely wouldn't be getting superior service, superior products. They'd be on an old core because they couldn't afford it. We couldn't afford it then either, by the way. We just thought we could. Right. And so, Rhonda made a point that mergers aren't the only way, and they're not. So I will say in the sense that I think there's tons of small credit unions that are super relevant to their members, and they're in this really incredible niche market or niche product or niche, member base, and they're adding incredible amounts of value. I just think that's the overwhelming minority. The majority of credit unions who are sort of in this anti-merger campaign, if you will, I think they're just turning a blind eye to the fact that, for better or for worse, their credit union is probably not adding as much value as it used to, or maybe as they think it does. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I think that's the real danger in our industry, is becoming irrelevant as an industry. And so I see strategic mergers like the one that we just did as a way to be relevant. And, we have a lot of competitors today that aren't other credit unions, that are not other banks. How can I compete with those? Yep. Our Gen Z, prospects.
And brick and mortar is not even the thing that you're competing with anymore, right?
No, it's Chime, it's Apple Pay, it's all these other things. And Chime probably has $1 billion marketing budget. I don't know, I'm making that up. But, we can't compete with that. We don't have those kind of resources. And so as a small organization, you surely can't. You have to find ways to cooperate. And guess what? That's what being a credit union is. So to say mergers are anti the movement, I think is foolish.
And in a conversation I heard the other day, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was billion-dollar credit unions used to be big. They're not really big, though. Okay. Those aren't the big ones anymore, right? I mean, it's just economy of scale has moved up, and it's really $5 billion becomes the big union, right?
I think it's a little bit of art and science to that. It's probably not a hard rule by any means, but I've tried to surround myself by mentors and CEOs that I really respect in the industry that are larger than us, even after the merger. And so I'm in a group of peers around the country, and we all collectively agreed that we thought $5 billion was sort of the real mark of a large credit union today. I promise you 10 years ago, we would not have said that.
Yeah, 500,000.
Yeah. So it really has gone up. I mean, like everything, go to the grocery store, you'll find out our cost of business has gone up tremendously. Regulatory burden, regulations, just everything. And so I do think, we have a lot of work still to do. Listen, we didn't merge with Louisiana Federal Credit Union and think, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
We have nothing else to do, nowhere else to grow, no other hard decisions to make in our future. We don't see it that way.
we'll kind of close it out with this. This has almost been a year now that it's been kind of out there. You guys have been working behind the scenes probably a little bit longer, but what's the most inaccurate thing that you heard out there in the chatter world with regards to this merger?
I think one of the big things that I actually heard externally and internally was that OnPath wanted to do this merger because they needed to for financial reasons, or Louisiana did this merger because we needed to. Now, obviously, no credit union is perfect. They have, challenges. OnPath has strengths and weaknesses. Louisiana has strengths and weaknesses. And the great thing is about this partnership is that where they were strong, we were weak. Where we were weak, they were strong. Like it was like a match made in heaven. And so together, collaboratively, we're able to be a much stronger credit union. But I think that feeling that people have that, they're doing this because they had to do it, quote unquote. No, we did this because we chose to do it because we knew it was in the best interest of our members collectively.
Yeah, that's definitely the biggest one we heard early on was, one of them is in trouble.
Yes.
I heard some chatter about, Jared must have run it into the ground. So he's running to Rhonda for rescue. Things like that. And listen, you're going to have noise, right? And so we took all the noise with a grain of salt. Really close to the member vote, I heard a couple of credit unions say, Rhonda has buyer's remorse.
Yes. That's funny. People that know me know Rhonda don't have...
So you weren't the one putting out those signs then, right? Before the... Okay, good.
Rhonda does not have buyer's
cleared that up.
Right. About
Rhonda,
anything.
With anything. When I decide to buy, I buy. Like, no looking back. Like, it's done. And so, no, I have been thrilled about this. Like, I can't tell you how much pressure I felt off of me when we started having these conversations and we decided to do this, because I knew that this was in the best interest of our credit union moving forward. I'm still looking down the road 5 years, 10 years. I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek and one of his books, The Infinite Game, and the decisions you make as an organization about long-term strategy, about, positioning your credit union for success, not necessarily today, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Everything that we've tried to make decisions on, we base that on how is this going to impact us down the road.
Right.
You can have short-term successes, but those short-term successes is not going to get you where you need to be down the road.
Look, y'all enjoyed the mimosas. You enjoyed this time. I appreciate it. I think I was the only one that took a drink, though, so y'all must have done all the drinking beforehand. But thanks for coming on. I think people are going to get a lot of insights on this, and that was the point. I appreciate you guys being a little more open to some of the questions and not sticking to the press release stuff. Save that for another podcast. So,
that's right.
But thanks for coming on. Jared Freeman, Rhonda Hotard, y'all be good. Targeted Impressions is a product of 3131 Media Solutions, a full-service advertising agency located in Metairie, Louisiana. We appreciate you joining in on this inaugural video podcast. I don't know how many more we'll do. Give us some feedback on that, but we appreciate you watching and listening. And until next time, God bless.